What does that mean for us in terms of tactics? That means we have to put up legal barricades, legal walls. You are talking as if these people at the top, these people who running the game don't understand what it is you all really think they're stupid? You all really think that these people don't understand what it is are you crazy? They are smarter than you. We have to become aware enough to be like, what is the play? That the vitriolic response that we want to have to it is not the way that we need to move. It is a thing of the past. Gajeesh. I need us to actually start thinking. Yo, what's good? It's your boy, The Black Anglo-Saxon, and today we are going to be talking how protests are not effective anymore. I'm sure everybody, as of now, has saw the response to the Renee Good situation with the ICE agents and just the overall climate that we find ourselves in right now as it relates to the corporate transition into how they have co-opted the state, and the state has become a basic aristocratic body in terms of their capacity or their willingness to serve our corporate class. And I think what we have to get into and really, really address is how a lot of these things came out of specific eras and are not necessarily applicable anymore. So please hit the like button. Please hit the share button. Please subscribe. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. But I'm going to bring in a video real quick because I want everybody to kind of see an example of what I mean by certain things being particularly outdated when it comes to certain tactics, certain methods of how we approach these grievances and how we approach these institutions as it relates to getting some type of reconciliation, some type of reparations, or some type of concessions from these institutions, corporations, etc., or whoever you have your grievance with. But I think that we really have to have a discussion as to what is and what is not effective. And I talked about this slightly in my last video because I knew that this was going to be a response in a lot of ways. So I'm gonna just go ahead and get into what actually it is that I am speaking to when it comes to these type of matters. So here we have this gentleman who's gonna go on, brown people, and he's gonna basically, you're gonna see him cursing these people out. Again, it's not something that I think is effective, but I'm gonna let y'all go ahead and hear what he got to say. Black and brown people, and you standing there supporting this bullshit. The fuck is wrong with you? You is no pride. There's this thing called a Judas goat. You indeed, both of you brothers are Judas goats. You're doing it for the money. You're doing it for the money. How do you explain this to your black mother that you're downgrading black folks? This is a joke. You supposed to sanction murder. You, man. What are you doing over there?
Let me ask you a question.
Understand that.
People who are proud.
Black and brown. So there you see him. He is going back and forth with the actual ICE agents and those individuals who essentially are doing their job. And the issue that I have with that is that these people are continuing to try to use tactics that come from the civil rights era. And I don't have anything against the civil rights era because the civil rights era had its moment and had its time and was effective because we are where we are now as a nation. But I want people to understand, though, is that what was effective then is not always effective now, especially because we are dealing with a more complex society from our technology, from the fact that we have a more multicultural demographic, as well as the complexity of our institutions in the sense that there wasn't as much corporate capture in terms of what was going on back in the day. And I want to be very, very clear that when you have these type of situations, it is behoove of us to approach this in a way where it's legislative or in some type of way where we understand, for example, even the overall awareness as to how we're engaging in overall interacting with these situations in these institutions. Because, take, for example, right, you have people who are upset with American imperialism. You have people who are upset with the situation down in Venezuela right now. You have people who are upset with this situation as it relates to Donald Trump, the institution, and how everything is basically congealing together all at one time. But be very, very, very careful. And this is what I mean by people kind of shoot themselves in the foot, because you'll have somebody who is particularly moving in this way and say that they are against imperialism. But understand that we have, for example, the corporation that is the NFL, right? The NFL has an MOU with the imperialist state, or so you'll have the NFL, who is a multi-billion dollar corporation who has a MOU with the military industrial complex, which allows them to basically entrench, reinforce, and calcify the military industrial complex. But you'll have people who will go out here and yell at ICE agents who are acting on in most cases, the behest of the actual body of people who are either the corporate actors or who are the heads of state, quote unquote, Donald Trump, the heads of agencies, the Stephen Millers of the world. And it's funny that Donald Trump went in because his whole thing was trying to attack and penetrate the deep state, and the deep state seems to be, if not to be, winning this battle as it relates to how they're going to operate in terms of the creations of wars, the initiations of taking resources and continuing on with the actual business as usual modicum that is America. Nothing is changed and nothing has changed and nothing will change except the fact of how we respond. That is what needs to change. And we need to understand that they have, though, grown in complexity. And it is important to keep that in mind because it changes how we interact and engage with these systems and ecosystems, because these tactics are done. These tactics cannot be used. It is no longer strategic to go out in the middle of the street and protest. Because, as I have said to you all before, these companies, these state bodies, they adapt to certain levels and certain mechanics of protest and certain mechanics of people pushing back on them. So when you don't take and seize opportunities, you really lose the capacity to fight them in that way, which is why I said, even in my last video, there we're running out of solutions. Because the other thing that I wanted to address is that I hear people saying, well, Black people need to understand that this is our fight, because the retort to the situation with the young lady losing her life is that we essentially are done. And what people need to realize, and have y'all not ever heard people say the statement, my hands are done, or my hands are tied, or I can't do nothing about that? And the truth in the matter is that there is a hierarchy of persistence. There is a hierarchy of social capital. So when the issues have struck white America, we need to understand that the solution to the problem has to be different, because it was never supposed to touch them in the first place, because of the hierarchy and the order and the structure of how things were supposed to happen. And so people are saying that because you got to understand, it does not account for everything that has changed. It does not account for the economics that we're living through in this time. It does not account for any of the technological advancements that we see and that we have in this day and time. So I want people to understand that please don't get out here cursing out these ICE agents, because also these people are typically everyday people the same way that cops are. Yes, you have bad faith actors. You have bad faith actors all across the board. And I'm not here to absolve anybody or anyone or any particular institution. But what I am here to say is that if you do not engage within the legislative body and put actual walls and put actual consequences, penalty, and teeth within the policy that we're creating and formulating in these ways, you are chasing your tail. And if you're also going to reinforce and then continue to patronize these corporations who literally are putting things on the desk of these state heads, you are chasing your tail. You cannot do and move in the way that you have been as we have in the past. All of these things are symbiotic and are now interacting with each other in a way that we've never seen before. So if you, to this guy, I don't know him, but you have to be very clear and very careful issue. And he presented it in this real satirical way. And I don't really think that people got or understood what he was trying to do in that moment, because a lot of people I saw clapping it up and didn't really understand that it was kind of a way to be disrespectful in a sense to the fact that we don't necessarily understand our surroundings and what's going on in the actual moment of what's happening right now in front of our very eyes. So let me go ahead and pull this up real quick.
The problem with revolution is that it will be photographed.
Yes.
So sloppy, loose t-shirts.
Oh my gosh.
Nobody got a pump. Nobody drunk their cayenne and their lemon. It's no, it's just not beautiful. So you're fighting the government and you look like shit. So when you die, it's for nothing. Did you see the lady that got shot? Disgusting wardrobe.
Oh my goodness.
Terrible ass moments.
And our January 6th would differ because we'd be looking.
Met Gala. Amazing. Wells Bonner everywhere.
Shut up.
You know?
And so, yeah, you see what he said. He basically was talking about the fact that we as a people would prioritize how we look versus the nature of what a January 6th looks like. And for me, that's not a flex, that's not a compliment, because what it says is, and what it kind of hits at, is the fact that our priorities are misaligned and that we don't understand some of the things that we have to sacrifice as it relates to what the revolution or what a real actual revolution might look like. But what I will say is that we as a people and we as a group have to really, really get away from the idea and the notion that is we're going to continue doing the same things. We're going to continue trying and running the same playbooks because these playbooks are outdated, and we're responding in a defensive way, and we're responding to the same stimuli. And I need everybody to understand that you are being provoked in a way that is intentional. You are being prodded in a way that is intentional, because the reaction and the response that they are expecting to get from it is the response that then allows them to take away more rights, to increase more state interaction, more state involvement, more state oversight. And so all of these different things you have to be very cognizant of, because people put a lot of time and effort and thought into the tactics that they use in terms of trying to, quote unquote, bring and usher in power, because politics is about power, power, and more power, right? And the next thing that I wanted to talk about that I got here was the creation of sellouts, right? I brought up the NFL, and I wanted to talk about the fact that everybody feels some type of way about how people operate in these situations, and they feel a certain way about people who don't speak up in these situations. And what I want to be very clear about is that we have to support people when people speak up for us. And why is it important? Because we don't always have a next time. There is not always a next time. There is not always solution after solution. At some point, you get boxed in so much that you lose the wherewithal to be able to mount a formidable force. And what I mean by that, an example of that, again, I'm going to go back to the NFL because I always bring it up, was the Colin Kaepernick situation. The NFL has become that much stronger as a result of that because of the players' policies that came out that basically took away a lot of the power and a lot of the aptitude that the players union had to actually go and challenge and maneuver in a way to gut the body of the NFL as players. And then also they have found a way to structure themselves and position themselves to create a product that doesn't allow for their destruction without destroying other industries and other institutions around it. Like I said, they are attached to the imperialism. They are attached to it in a direct way. And so for all of my people, oh, I'm anti-imperialist, I'm anti this, I'm anti that, but you're still watching the NFL. They have a direct MOU, memorandum of understanding, for that very reason, to basically triage, funnel, and compound on American imperialism. And when you have the opportunity to gut said institution, we went back and we reinforced and we gave our dollars, we gave our time, and understand that these people run in circles and move in circles, right? Because I also wanted to talk about the accelerationist. And what is an accelerationist, right? Because the term, matter of fact, I'm gonna pull up an article. People continue and are talking about what it is and what it means to be an accelerationist. And basically, it is what I would call a nihilistic view where people in certain institutions are striking up the capacity of whether it be capitalism and certain other ideologies that feed into each other to perpetuate, reinforce, and to energize it in a way that we find ourselves, for good or for worse, at the end of an era of society. And the reason that I have a particular problem with that is because it doesn't allow for the actual critique of what needs to be done. And so, again, meet the Silicon Valley CEOs who insist that greed is good. So, Silicon Valley is a physical place, but it is also a style of thinking, a state of being, and an ethos. We always use that word. Its reach has extended far beyond its origins of San Francisco, beyond even Austin and Seattle, where it has been displaced anyone who dares utter the words that aren't from a VC investment thesis or pitch deck. The $1 trillion plus market caps of the biggest tech companies exceed the GDPs of all but the richest countries. So its GDPs are bigger than countries. We have corporations whose gross domestic product is bigger than countries. So when they move abroad and take their endeavors to these developing nations to extract their labor, which is what I talk about with global labor arbitrage, they use that to then reinforce the power inadvertently to these nations. Like I had a whole conversation in one of my videos about how Apple is in India now, and India is a part of BRICS, right? So we have that. And then we're going to read some more. The Valley's companies are ensconced in every single part of our lives: art, culture, commerce, politics, wars, and communications, all run through their devices and apps. What if, though, the truth is that we haven't Silicon Valleyed hard enough? Adherents of effective accelerationism, a trendy new phrase passing itself off as an ideology. It's a worldview that began with a few anonymous Twitter accounts back in 2022 and has since taken off, culminating in a 5,000 word October manifesto from Valley oligarch and venture capitalist Mark Andreessen that generated enough online discourse that the New York Times columnist Ezra Klein felt compelled to rebut it in his first column after 3 months of book leave. Fans of EAC, again, that is effective accelerationism, believe that speeding up profit driven technological innovation is an inevitability and a moral good. It is a repudiation of effective altruism. And let's go ahead in real time. What is altruism? Selfless concern for well-being of others without the care for one's own interests, unselfishness. Now, ask yourself though, in a business environment in this rugged form of capitalism, does altruism actually exist? And have we seen, because this is where awareness and critical thinking comes in, have we seen evidence of Silicon Valley in our aristocratic class as well as our corporate class, multi-trillion dollar billionaires? I'm not talking about low millionaires, because these are totally separate groups of people. Have they shown us and given us the evidence to say that they are altruistic? Hold that. The social movement backed by disgraced crypto mogul Sam Bankman-Fried that urges people to become ultra wealthy so they can use their fortunes for good. While effective altruists claim to be ultimately motivated by charitable giving, accelerationists unequivocally want every dollar of tech money plowed back into tech companies. Giving money to charity is a waste, and it is not a self-sustaining growing organism like a corporation. Simply invest in inspiring startups instead, wrote Jeff Bezos. One of the accounts that helped popularize EAC, Bezos, went on to praise Google co-founder Larry Page for having said he'd prefer to give money to Elon Musk or other founders changing the world than to philanthropic causes. Underneath all this talk about philanthropy, lurks EAC's chief concern, removing any and all impediments to the development of technology, especially artificial intelligence. In practice, its proponents see the general concept of building as advancing human welfare. Up to the top. Underneath all this talk about philanthropy lurks EAC's chief concern. And I say, removing any and all impediments to the development of technology, especially artificial intelligence. And why is that important, people? It is important because we have seen Donald Trump, we have seen people put or try to put in place barricades around the tech industry that frees them up from any critique, that frees them up from any regulations, that frees them up from any impediments against their endeavors. And then again, add in, have we seen a body of people, a body of interests, stockholders, asset holders moving away that is against the interests of the corporation, as Jeff Bezos kindly put? It sounds good, but is it good? And why is that important into the conversation of old tactics not working, of are we running out of solutions? Because if we live in a state, if we live in a state that is basically upheld by corporatists who have fleeced, liquidated the United States and transitioned it into a fascist body where the state heads are held captive by the corporate interest, and the corporate interest is only there to reinforce the value of the corporation, which is not an actual person, and is completely separated from the human person, which is why you have, again, two persons. People want to understand why Main Street and Wall Street don't connect, because Wall Street is the person that is the corporate body. Main Street is the person that is the actual person. And those two things are separate. And in this environment, they are opposed to each other, because the way that corporations have been built and have been incentivized, and this is not to talk about people being evil. We're just talking about the incentivization structure of how these bodies have been created to operate. I hear people talk about, again, the parties, all of these different things, all of these different bodies, all of these different institutions. It is not about people going into a particular one as to who is good or bad. It is how you enter into it. You can enter into well-meaning anything, but if the posture is wrong, you will have the same result. What do I mean? Let's take the sneaker industry, right? The whole law, we going to turn this into a stock market, which is why we have StockX. Taking product, stripping or not creating any value, but taking something that is already in place and selling it to people at a higher rate, basically scalping, you are feasting, extracting everything that is good with leaving nothing there. Let's take the CBC on a political lane. You have black politicos who have used up all the social capital and the political capital and have not put anything back into it. So what does it become? It becomes bone. It becomes a vacuum. It becomes nothingness. It becomes a void, which is why you can have a person like Donald Trump or any one of these people come into it and insert whatever it is. And that is not always bad, but when the environment is built on gluttony, greed, as they say, greed is good. When we live in an environment, well, do as thou wilt. When we live in an environment where everything goes down is up, left is right, and nothing has any type of structure and order, we have chaos. And the institutions are perpetuating chaos. Because it is why, again, you see a Donald Trump go in and get into office, and people want to say, oh my God, it's so stupid that he's trying to take over the institutions and the academia, and all, because academia has become the same void, vapid vacuum. Because nobody stands for anything. Everything is about the dollar. And when everything comes about the dollar, then nothing matters. The actual character don't matter. The actual substance don't matter. The actual curriculum don't matter. It's about the indoctrination. That's why we have centers of indoctrination, and that's why corporations are taking them over, because they are now seen as tools to reign and consume and perpetuate more power. And what does that mean for us in terms of tactics? That means we have to put up legal barricades, legal walls. We have to put in restrictions. We have to put in regulations. Telling somebody F you at a rally don't matter. You are talking as if these people at the top, these people who running in the game, don't understand what it is they're doing. You all really think they're stupid? You all really think that these people don't understand what it is they're doing? Are you crazy? They are smarter than you. They're smarter than me. Just because I don't agree with them don't mean I'm not smart enough to know that these are wickedly intelligent people. And we have to become aware enough to be like, what is the play that they're thinking about? Because the vitriolic response that we want to have to it is not the way that we need to move. It is a thing of the past. It is days of the old. Gajeesh, gajeesh. I need us to actually start thinking. And again, the reality is that we are running out of time. We are running out of solutions. Because I want to say in China, that they are banning filters. And I'm assuming it's because all of the facial recognition and all of the technological chain of commands that are coming down the pipe as a result of the arms race to who's going to be the next global power, people are protecting their borders. People are protecting their national interests. And to do that, I need to know who you are. I need to know where and what is moving what and how it is moving at all times. And you can think that China is wrong. You can think that all of these countries who people continue to say have dictatorial style leadership runs, but we have soft despotism in America. Alex de Tocqueville talks about it extensively because we live in an environment where my mother can't support me because she works for the Department of Justice, and the Department of Justice, if she like and share my video, it will trigger a response. Is that freedom? Is that not censorship? And we must ask ourselves, like I said earlier, there's a hierarchy and chain of command when it comes to who gets pillaged, who gets the chemicals put in their neighborhood. So for this young lady, this white young lady, because that's important, to have her life taken at the hands of a state federal agency, what does that tell us? What does that tell us? Where are we? What does it mean? We have to begin to ask questions because we can't get answers without asking the questions. Because part of, again, why people are saying, my hands are up. This ain't our fight. It was black people fight when we was talking to y'all. Because see, part of the problem is people want people to keep talking, but it's the same old thing. And I get both sides. I get the people who say, look, let's just do what we got to do and get it up out the mud and fight our fight. And I also get the people who say that we need what we need from the state to do what we need to do. I think the answer is in the middle because there is some, look, we know who these people are. We know what these people are. When I say these people, I'm talking about white, black, woman, man, Latino. If you are of a particular ideological framework, that is the them. That is the them. This has nothing to do. Is there a higher propensity for certain demographics to hold that ideological framework? Absolutely. But it's not guaranteed that you don't hold that framework because of the color of your skin or because you are a person of color or a woman. But we don't have all the chances in the world. That's not how that works. Sometimes you just don't have the ingredients to make what you need. Sometimes you do not have the ability and the capacity. I did a whole episode about the difference between capacity and agency because you can do certain things, but doesn't mean you should. It doesn't mean you have the ability to do it in a way that it is formidable to forces in opposition to yourself. And people think that we have unlimited time and unlimited chances. People love to say, better late than never, or there's tomorrow. No, there's not always a tomorrow. Sometimes people don't wake up. That's the reality. Sometimes there will be a moment where we cannot do anything about the circumstances and the conditions because they have worked out all of the kinks that are literally in military science. This is so strategic to the point where I need people to really understand that they know us better than we know ourselves. There is so much research and development that goes into creating products, creating legislation, how the legislation interacts with the natural inclination to basically create or recreate or perpetuate particular circumstances or behaviors. I have said countless and countless of times that it is about incentivization and de-incentivization. And the solutions that were ready and presented before the vid, before 2022, before the second Donald Trump administration are not the same solutions that we are going to have to use now. Protests are almost obsolete. And I'm not going to say that they're completely obsolete because I do think that there are a time and a place for a lot of different things. But the problem is that we aren't exercising the other tactics and tools in the tool belt. One, because we don't even recognize and understand the moment. Like I said in my last video, y'all want to keep writing dissertations and think pieces. I don't care. These people are thieves. And I need people to understand you do not have rights that you cannot defend. You do not have rights that you cannot fight for. It's like contract law. Everybody love to say, I'm going to sue, I'm going to sue, I'm going to sue. How much money you got? You got more money than that corporation? You got more money than the government? Because they're going to wait you out. They money long. They got a whole floor. The 6th floor is full of lawyers, ready, waiting for that action. And you think that you gonna sue. Because guess what them lawyers do? Them lawyers know, the judges, them lawyers know they all drink whiskey together. Everybody know everybody. And that's what I need people to understand when it comes to how these things work, how these things intertwine, and how these things interweave. And ask themselves, where are we being accelerated to? How are we accelerating? People really need to get a grip. Going outside is not the flex that you think it is, talking to people like they ain't nothing. But what do I know? Let me know what y'all think. Leave a like, share, comment. Please subscribe. I appreciate you for joining in. Thank you. But do y'all think how much more time do you think we got, if we got more time at all? That's what I want to know.